All right, take it away, Christine.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to our Samvera Connect session on voluntary product accessibility templates. Don't you love that? Nick Homenda and I are excited to discuss the process for the development of the VPATs for both Hyrax and for Hyku. So before we start, just a little background. Accessibility was discussed at the 2024 Spring Partner Meeting, and then a call was made for a working group to work on this topic. The first meeting was held in February of 2025. The goal was to ensure that Samvera solutions met the needs of everyone and also complied with institutional requirements for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also affectionately known as WCAG. As a result, the working group identified these three proposed outcomes. First, to create a VPAT for each of the Samvera products. VPATs translate accessibility requirements and standards into actionable testing criteria for products and for services. Secondly, to conform to the April 2026 Department of Justice Title II requirements, which at that time stated that web content and apps from state and local governments that had a population of 50,000 or more must meet WCAG 2.1 AA standard by April 2026. That has now been updated to April 2027. And third, to incorporate accessibility into development, testing, deployment, documentation, pretty much everywhere that we work. So as part of this work in the accessibility group for the VPAT, we talked to Mary Albert from Princeton, who evaluates VPATs on a regular basis. She took the time to answer our questions, provide us with guidance, and really helped us understand how to create one for ourselves. We also used an online platform called Fable, where digital teams can engage with people with disabilities for both research and for user testing purposes. Princeton donated 2 hours of this service to us, one each for Hyrax and for Hyku. We created the tests and watched those who regularly use screen readers work through the software. It was enlightening, to say the least. And we'd also like to acknowledge Kate Onberg, from Princeton, who facilitated the Fable testing for us. Now, before I move on, we would like to thank everyone on this working group, and their names are on the slide, but in particular, Princeton University. Kate Lynch chaired the group. Mary Albert gave us their time. Kate Onberg facilitated the Fable testing, and the university graciously gave us the use of the Fable service. They have been wonderful as we move through this service. If you have never seen a VPAT, this is the only one we could find that was from Samvera. It was a Hyku VPAT that was done in 2024. And this is the first page of what a VPAT looks like. And so a few highlights here. The version of the software that was tested, in this case, 501, is always listed at the top of the VPAT. This was a really important release for Hyku because it provided needed basic functionality. However, the release came out in February 2023, and the VPAT came out in February 2024. And by that time, Hyku had moved on to version 6, which was another major release with large feature sets and really needed its own VPAT. You'll also see contact information for questions about the VPAT. The community was really fortunate to have Ubiquity Press create this document because it provided a real good foundation, because it created a foundation for us moving forward. Third, you'll also see a discussion of how the software was evaluated. It's important to understand that this VPAT was done primarily using browser extensions and a screen reader. In other words, page by page, which is how the Hyrax, as you'll find out, VPAT was also done. And then at the end, at the end of this slide, there's a table which probably incorporates the most important information, which is the level of conformance. In this case, Hyku 501 conform to WCAG 2.1 AA, which is actually the standard the Department of Justice wants us to conform to. Nick, it's all yours.
Thanks, Christine. Yeah, so besides the Haiku VPAT that Christine mentioned that we had access to, a lot of us were unfamiliar with VPATs for other repository and digital library platforms. And also, not every repository has like a publicly available VPAT. Some of them you have to ask for them, and others just might not have one at all. They may have changed in the past few months, but I haven't looked recently. But we did find that Archive Space and DSpace both have VPATs that they regularly update. And looking at theirs answered a lot of questions for us, which included like how to evaluate the platform versus the content that's in the platform that users will upload. And what areas of the VPAT are definitely applicable to the type of software we're making versus not applicable. And how to explain the areas of functionality that we are actively working on improving, and where to direct people who are looking at this VPAT to more information. Like we were unsure how to handle that issue. So like here's an example from the DSpace VPAT of an area that they partially support. And we have a lot of areas that we partially support or do not yet support in Hyrax as well. And this is how they addressed it, talking about what they currently do support, what they don't, and then a link to a ticket or another page that's publicly available where people can keep track of their progress in improving the accessibility of this one particular criteria. So following a few weeks of investigation and meetings from the Accessibility Working Group, we began working on the VPAT in summer of 2025. And by we, I'm specifically referring to Christine, my other presenter, as well as Julie Hardesty from Indiana University Bloomington, and Rebecca Cotty from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, as well as me. We split up the VPAT into 10 GitHub tasks in the Hyrax repo, and we completed work over a couple of months, working off of a shared Google Doc from the VPAT template and adding comments to review each other's sections and how we'd addressed evaluating its compliance. Similar to the other VPATs that we saw, we noted the areas where conformance is partially supported this current time and linked to the active GitHub issues, as well as a page in the Hyrax documentation Confluence space, which has links to all of the open and closed accessibility issues, which is done by tag rather than having to update individual issues on a wiki page, because that would quickly go out of date. And then we published our VPAT in December of 2025. It's in the Samvera repository, and there's a link to it there. And these slides will be shared, and you can see it after this if you want. Back to you, Christine.
So as the result of the work that was done on Hyrax's VPAT, there were many software accessibility updates. And those of us on the Haiku side had to wait until those were ported into a Haiku release. That happened in version 7.0, which was released on March 23rd. However, if you caught it, Nick Don mentioned that there was a major bug that was found, not a bug, but we needed a major update. We needed an update, and so 7.1 came out a few weeks later on April 7th, and we decided to hold off until that update was there. Technically, at that time, that gave us 2 to 3 weeks before the original Department of Justice deadline. Because Haiku is so different, UI-wise, we were a little concerned about the timing of that. But the Department of Justice changed that date to April 2027 and has given us a little bit of breathing room. So there are 3 of us. You can see that on the slide that both Rama and Eleni have joined me in working on this project on the Haiku side. We have been working on it for approximately a month, and grateful for the time that they have been able to give to the project. We have not yet finished, but at this time, the process we're using is that we started with the Hyrax VPAT and created a Haiku VPAT off that, and each of us took sections of that, evaluating that VPAT against what Haiku had. We then took the University of Louisville up on their offer of automated testing of Haiku using SortSite. Thank you guys so much. So right now, each of us are taking sections of that resulting report, creating accessibility tickets, and updating the VPAT as needed. And this should take us to WCAG 2.1 AA. However, Hyrax is actually conforms to 2.2 AA. So the last piece that we're going to do is to do a page-by-page browser testing using SiteImprove browser extension, which is what Hyrax used, to test the major Haiku pages that are different from Hyrax.
So, although Hyrax was in pretty good shape from an accessibility standpoint when we started this work, it still had and has a few areas that need work. And following the meetings that we had with Fable, where they evaluated the screen reader performance of Hyrax, we were able to identify a bunch of low-hanging fruit features to improve the screen reader performance. And we're especially grateful to be able to have gone through that process since none of those screen reader improvements turned up using the testing methods that we previously had available to us. It was extremely enlightening, and we're really pleased with being able to improve that. Notch8 folks have been finishing up work to expand metadata that's possible on file sets, which includes alternative text. Nick Don mentioned that in Haiku, and that's something that will be available in Hyrax. And then a huge thanks to Tiffany Chan at University of Victoria, again, as well as Kirk Wang at Notch8, Chris Colvard, and Dhananji Wathana at Indiana University for their work in strategizing how to incorporate V3 or version 3 IIIF manifests, as well as the Clover IIIF viewer and VTT captions. And like I mentioned in my previous update, this is available in main now and will be in a major release that we will be releasing soon. I'm going to mention some lessons that we've learned through going through this process. So evaluating repository software for the purposes of WCAG conformance requires a stable and deployed version of where multiple people can access it and its content. And many features in a repository require content of different file types to be available on the platform in order to evaluate its conformance to a specific WCAG guideline. Findings from this sort of evaluation are often a great point of entry for developers to improve a platform. So the stories we create are usually not a huge lift, but provide a huge value benefit for improving its accessibility performance and conformance according to these guidelines. As a reviewer of a repository platform, looking through this lens, it really helps to understand the platform deeply and its limitations in order to be able to accurately capture its level of conformance and explain where we're at and where we want to go. So you notice that Rebecca, Julie, and I are some of the folks doing that. We're the current and two previous product owners of Hyrax. And Christine is deeply knowledgeable about Haiku and Hyrax as well. We found it really helpful to add links to labeled GitHub issues on our Confluence page about accessibility development. It helps track how well we're doing and what we've recently completed. It's a lot easier than linking individual issues. Again, that would go out of date almost immediately. And then, we learned that it'll be a lot easier, hopefully, next time we have to do this, where we update a VPAT on a major release, especially where anything changes in the look and feel of the application. Although practically speaking, we may end up doing this on the minor point release that immediately follows a major release in case there are additional UI changes that happen at that point in time, but very shortly after a major release.
In our next steps, the quickest next step is going to be a VPAT for Haiku 7.2. It's bringing in Bulkrax's guided import, and the page formatting is quite different from the rest of the dashboard. So that shouldn't take very long to do that, but that will probably be the next VPAT that's done. Normally, VPATs are updated for every major release. However, if a major release doesn't come, for example, within a year, an annual check would be in order if there have been some minor releases there. So we would have to get on some kind of schedule. Most of the work done for these VPATs was done manually. That is, using a browser extension and checking each page one by one. It's a laborious and a time-consuming process. Although not 100%, there is software that checks entire sites, as Louisville did for Hyku, and that gives us a jump start on the issues. So I will just say that if any institution can offer this type of service for Hyku or for Hyrax in the future, that would be wonderful. It is a costly service, and at this time, that cost cannot be borne by the Samvera budget. Nick also mentioned that the Fable service uncovered issues that automated testing did not. If Samvera libraries have a couple of hours they could donate to accessibility or VPAT testing, please contact us. And also, as you work with the software, be mindful of accessibility issues that you see and create tickets for them, being sure to add the label of accessibility so that we can find them. As Nick mentioned, many of these tickets are perfect for newer Samvera developers. There were so many people that helped us through the VPAT creation process. It truly takes a village. So just because this slide includes just Nick and me, know that there were many others that supported this process in many ways. And the next time we hope the process will be easier. If you're interested in working on the next VPAT or on accessibility in general, contact one of us and we will bring you into the fold. And if you have any questions, we would be happy to answer them.